Hello and welcome to Monday's Granada Reports.
Yeah, good evening. Here's what's coming up on tonight's programme.
Living a life in isolation. We meet Harvey and his mum, who've waited more than a year for support. Tonight, a special report on the children with special educational needs missing out on the education they deserve.
It's really difficult. And he needs to be around his peers, you know. He needs to not be isolated.
An inquest opens into the death of a little girl who died just hours after being sent home from Wigan Infirmary.
Silent excitement in Manchester as the Snooker Tour Championships come to town.
The African savannah comes to Chester, where at the world-famous zoo for their opening of a huge new habitat for endangered animals.
And there's not much rain in the forecast at all for our wetlands and nature reserves as we go through this week. I'll have all the details later on in the programme.
Well, first tonight, to the thousands of children in our region with additional special needs not getting access to the education they are entitled to by law.
Yeah, it means they're missing months and in some cases even years of learning, and it's affecting people with an Education, Health and Care Plan, or EHCP. They're used by local authorities to set out the additional support someone may need up to the age of 25.
Well, special provision places are in short supply and parents who are already struggling to cope say they are being let down by councils. I spent the day with a mum and her little boy on a long, painful journey of their own. I've come to Clitheroe to meet Harvey. He has sight and hearing loss that affects his everyday life.
Keeping my little boy isolated away from all his peers, because that's where we're at, due to lack of support from the local authority. I'm doing everything I can.
Harvey's 4 and has complex needs. So what's the morning routine like in there?
It's difficult. I mean, it's difficult for any family with children, isn't it? Big one, good boy. But it's difficult because he's so consistent with his routine. So if anything changes in terms of, like I say, routes or even cereal, a meltdown can last an hour and a half. His frustration comes out in sort of anger. There's been many times we've been just outside and I'm crying, he's crying, the boys are going to be late for school, you know, because I may have stepped differently on a curb, or he's not touched the door on the way out, you know, because he's got to touch all the doors when they come out to see that they're shut. So I might get 5, 6 o'clock for just in case, so just in case Harvey, you know, isn't feeling it today and I can't get him to walk, or I can't get him anywhere, I can't get him to eat, you know, that sort of thing. Ready? Let's go together, ready? We're going to sign your name. Go. The H.
The living room at home is where Harvey spends most days, and his mum Kim has had to quit a full-time job to look after her son.
Pyjamas. And then we're going to brush our teeth.
Mainstream nursery isn't working for Harvey, and it's overwhelming at times.
Harvey, just walking to school. Okay. Just nappy and pyjamas. Pyjamas, because we're just going to school. We're not going anywhere today, sweetheart. Just to school. We lost that battle, didn't we? It's his mobility mainly as well, you know. And a nursery day, the anxiety that starts the day before for me, probably for him, because I think, what am I going to do tomorrow? What am I going to do? He's not going to go into nursery. I've got to work. I gave up my full-time job. I was working Monday to Friday. I had to give up my full-time job, one, to accommodate his appointments. He had surgery in April 2023 and needed some time for his appointments, but also because I was ringing up. I couldn't get him, I couldn't manage, you know, I couldn't manage and I couldn't get into work, and I need some work. I need something for my mental health, you know, and it's really difficult. And he needs to be around his peers, you know. He needs to not be isolated. Sorry, I get emotional. I just think it's so unfair. So that's where we're at with him. It's hard.
Kim needs help. She says a place at a specialist preschool would have seen Harvey thrive, but she can't get the funding from her local authority, so he's unable to go.
Find your stick, please. Find Harvey's stick.
Harvey loves to learn, but amid a crisis in special educational provision, he's among thousands of kids being let down. And a long journey begins with a delayed document specifying the supports they need. An Education, Health and Care Plan, or EHCP, is a legal document that can unlock extra funding until the age of 25, but councils are struggling to deal with demand. The number of EHCPs in the region have increased dramatically in the last 5 years, from 47,000 in 2019 to more than 80,000 last year, a 42% rise to plans that should be issued within 20 weeks by law. In fact, Harvey waited more than a year for his EHCP, and it's not making a difference now. You know, the sad truth is, Harvey's case isn't an exceptional one. In the year to July last year, almost 1,200 complaints were made to Lancashire County Council about their services for children with special educational needs and disabilities. And in common with the nationwide trends, the number of EHCPs has rocketed as local authorities deal with a tidal wave of demand. Demands that can be found here in Lancashire, where a joint inspection to the local authority found widespread and/or systemic failings leading to significant concerns about the experiences and outcomes of young people with special educational needs and/or disabilities. Charities say the COVID pandemic has made matters worse.
So there are lots of issues that affect this backlog on the HCPs, whether it's local authority funding or resources. But at the same time, we know that disabled children and their families were one of the groups hit hardest by the pandemic. And the national data does show that there was a knock-on effect during the pandemic on EHCP.
He wants to learn, and it's just finding them right pathways and giving him that pathways and that right support for him to learn like any other child, because at the minute he isn't, and it's because he's disabled. The local authority have a duty to make sure that doesn't happen to him. And if it's happening now, I have no hope that it's going to get any better. These things I'm reading, as well as the recent Ofsted report, some of them are quotes from where they've promises in the past, things are going to change, we've injected this amount of money, but SEN is on the rise, and we're not prepared for it in this community, in this county. We're not prepared for it.
23 months after the application for an EHCP was first made, Harvey will start at a special school in September. But the question from his family is, why does Harvey have to wait until then for the support he needs? And what happens to the thousands of children in our region not getting the support they're entitled to by law?
It's a really frustrating situation, isn't it, for Harvey's family? Well, in a statement, Lancashire County Council say Harvey has an EHCP plan and will be working with the nursery to provide the appropriate support to meet his needs. We're looking into our early years provision as part of our wider SEN sufficiency strategy and how we can better support our nurseries to meet the needs of our SEN children in the future.
They also say they'll continue to work with Harvey's mum to find him an appropriate setting for reception. Well, earlier we were joined by Imogen Jolly, a solicitor who represents some of the families affected by this issue. We started by asking her where parents stand legally when it comes to getting better access to education for their kids.
There are significant delays in parents accessing statutory assessments, and then once they're in that assessment process, there are delays in that, and then there are delays once they reach the end of that in going through a tribunal process, which at the moment is taking about 12 months. It's not uncommon to hear stories of parents waiting up 2 years plus for the right level of support. That early part of the process, the statutory assessment process, is governed by statutory regulations. There are strict timeframes and deadlines for local authorities to comply, and if they breach those, they can be subject to what we call a judicial review.
So what would your advice be to mums and dads who are watching this, who feel that they've hit a brick wall, they've tried all these different things, they're deeply concerned right now about the provision that is available for their child?
Most parents need some form of support. Obviously, there are lawyers who did this kind of work like myself, but equally there are a number of very good kind of charities who support parents through the process. But I think it's hard to deal with this yourself, and because it is a legal process. Even once you get your document, quite often they're not fit for purpose, and you need to challenge, and the only way of challenging is through the tribunal, and can be quite a complicated process for parents. Although it's not meant to be, it can be when you're dealing with so much else as well in your life. You need some support with that.
And Imogen, we focus on Lancashire County Council because that's where Harvey's from, that's where he lives, but this is a problem across the counties right across the northwest. I
practice in the northwest, but I also have a nationwide practice as well, and I see this across the country, but the northwest particularly, and there's a number of other local authorities who are failing quite significantly and forcing parents down that tribunal route, which they shouldn't really have to take if local authorities complied with the statutory guidance and the codes of practice, which are very clear about what they need to do.
I mean, it's a very desperate and stressful situation for those parents affected by this. Can you give us any hope?
I mean, if you eventually get to tribunal, the vast majority of cases are successful at tribunal for parents, and so ultimately you do get what you want. And this is the awful thing that local authorities aren't engaging with what they know to be right in the early days. Why not deal with this a year earlier and not put parents through that? But yeah, as I say, there are lots of people trying to help out there, and hopefully parents can access the support they need.
OK, Imogen Jolly, thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Okay.
And if you've been affected by the issues raised in our report, then you can email us and tell us your story. The address is granada.reports@itv.com. Well, next tonight, an inquest is underway to examine the death of a little girl who died just hours after being sent home from hospital.
Yes, early post-mortem results showed 22-month-old Hayley Thompson, who was from Ashton and Makerfield, died from sepsis and pneumonia.
Yeah, her parents had been told to take her home and to give her Calpol.
The inquest in Bolton is expected to last all week. Let's cross live to Zoe Muldoon. And Zoe, what more can you tell us?
Well, today the jury's heard statements from Hayley's parents, who said their daughter was a happy, funny little girl. Hayley Thompson was just a few months off her second birthday when she died in December 2022. She first became unwell earlier that month and had a few doctor's appointments. The first was on the 7th of December, where she was given antibiotics, but after developing a rash, she was taken off them. Hayley became poorly again on the 16th of December. This time the GP said she had a viral infection and that antibiotics wouldn't do anything. She just needed Calpol and fluids. But she didn't improve. On the 18th, Hayley's parents said her breathing became loud and laboured, and they took her to the A&E department at Wigan Infirmary. The court heard how the family waited over 4 hours to see a doctor who took Hayley's blood pressure and temperature. Hayley's mum said in a statement that the doctor gave them a look of "Why are you here?" and told them to go home and keep giving her Calpol. At around midnight the next day, Hayley's dad went to check on her. She seemed okay, but less than 6 hours later, her dad said she was unresponsive and frozen solid. The court heard how Hayley was rushed to hospital by paramedics, but was declared dead just over half an hour after arriving. The jury heard a statement from Dr. Waqar Ahmed, the consultant paediatrician who treated Hayley at Wigan Infirmary the night that she died. He said that when the toddler arrived at A&E, rigor mortis had already set in and she wasn't breathing. After 30 minutes of CPR, she was pronounced dead. The coroner's court also heard evidence from pathologist Dr. Melanie Newbold, who carried out the post-mortem on Hayley. She confirmed Hayley died with pneumonia caused by sepsis and the strep A infection. Now, more evidence will be heard from doctors tomorrow as the inquest continues at Bolton Coroner's Court.
Zoe, thank you.
Sport now, and just one North West club remains in the FA Cup. Hello, Chris.
Yes, sadly the dream's over for Preston North End, but Manchester City are back at Wembley for the FA Cup semi-finals for the 7th year in a row. They had to fight back after going a goal behind at Bournemouth, but their only hope of a trophy this season remains intact thanks to a 2-1 win. Championship side Preston's bid to join City at Wembley was ruined by Aston Villa, who won 3-0 at Deepdale. Villa will now face Crystal Palace in the Final Four, while City take on Nottingham Forest to the delight of Pep Guardiola.
Yeah, we did it. 7 times in a row, semi-finals FA Cup. I'm sorry to tell you, but this is outstanding. And the teams that we faced in so far, it was in lower divisions, but when you are 7 times in a row, you play all the games, all the teams in the Premier League, in Championship, we always have been there. So we love the FA Cup, so hopefully we can reach the final, and I'm really pleased to play against Nottingham Forest.
Well, could Burnley be ready to rejoin City in the Premier League next year? Only goal difference is keeping them out of the Championship's automatic promotion spots after their 1-0 win over Bristol City. Neighbours Blackburn were beaten, but in League One, Stockport strengthened their grip on a playoff spot, beating Burton 2-1. Blackpool climbed to within 5 points of the top 6 thanks to a 2-1 win over Bolton Wanderers. And Ryan Lowe's first home game in charge of Wigan ended in a 1-1 draw with Barnsley. In League Two, Salford kept their playoff hopes alive with a 3-2 win at Bromley. Crewe and Barrow were beaten, but Fleetwood Town came from behind to beat MK Dons 4-2. Accrington Stanley held second place Bradford City to a goalless draw. And Morecambe beat a very soggy Swindon 1-0, but still have 7 points to make up if they're going to get their heads above water and avoid sinking out of the Football League. Manchester United are just 2 wins away from clinching a place in the Women's Champions League. They continued their charge towards Europe with a 2-0 win over Everton in Super League. Elsewhere, Liverpool lost, but Manchester City recovered from their Champions League exit in midweek to win 2-1 at Brighton. Now to snooker, and with the World Championship just a couple of weeks away, the 12 most informed players on the planet have been warming up in Manchester. The Tour Championship got underway at Manchester Central today, with fans flooding to the tables to see the likes of John Higgins and Mark Selby. Ronnie O'Sullivan and world number 1 Judd Trump will be in action later this week, with the final to come on Sunday.
This is the creme de la creme of this season. The top 4 seeds are already seeded through to the quarterfinals. Then you've got 8 players playing off to try and get to the quarterfinals as well. And it's a jam-packed full of, the biggest names in snooker. And it's great to come to one of the big cities. Obviously, we have the Masters in Wembley and in London. We have the World Championships in Sheffield. It's great to have a big event in Manchester.
I've come from Hull today on the train, and we're very excited about the Tour Championships. We saw it in Hull a few years ago, and we love to come to the new snooker venues, and this is new to us today.
Well, I go to watch quite a lot of professional snooker competitions, so recently moved back to Cheshire, so this is a local one for me now, and obviously an opportunity to see many great players very quickly.
Yeah, Manchester going potty for snooker.
Absolutely, many happy fans there. Thanks so much, Chris.
Well, next to Chester and the vast savannah being unveiled at the city's zoo.
Yeah, the heart of Africa will be home to 57 species and promises to bring the grasslands of Central Africa right here to the northwest.
Before the grand opening on Saturday, our correspondent Rob Smith went for a look around.
22.5 acres of savannah dropped into a corner of Chester. Giraffes, antelope, zebras and ostriches living side by side in a giant paddock. Called the Heart of Africa, it's said to be the biggest habitat ever created by a UK zoo. The surrounding enclosures bring the total number of species here to 57. Staff have made sure nothing will eat anything else it's kept with.
There's no predators on this savannah, thank goodness, yeah. There's predators around the savannah, but not actually in the savannah. We've had a few teething problems. The giraffes aren't sure of the zebra aren't sure of the giraffes. But yeah, other than that, no, it's going well. We've had quite a few sleepless nights coming to this point, though.
And perhaps giving sleepless nights to some visitors surrounded by a swarm of locusts. The windows on this Land Rover are sealed. The message about protecting food supply, species and the environment.
Definitely something I've never experienced before, but it's really nice to be able to do that in a controlled environment where if I want to leave, I can, as I've just demonstrated.
You got out quite quickly.
Yeah.
From creating hot environments indoors to spaces for animals more comfortable in the Northwest standard weather has taken 8 years and £28 million. But the zoo believes extra visitors will help add £3 million to conservation projects they're already running in parts of Africa.
It's almost like being in Africa. It's like being out in the wild, isn't it? Because there's so much space.
And they're not in cages either, are they?
No.
So open space.
It's so nice to see all the animals together and just a little kind of education.
Educating younger generations about the wider world and safeguarding it. Rob Smith, ITV News, Chester.
Animals like happy families for now. Here's Joe.
Why do I need a shower? I've been out in the rain.
The faster you go, the sooner you'll be out. You'll save water too.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Thank you. A very good evening to you. Plenty of lovely spring sunshine around over the next few days for you and Miss Molly here to enjoy. And UV levels are climbing. It's pretty strong, the sun at this time of year. It'll be feeling warm, but cooling down a little bit by the weekend with slightly more cloud beginning to move in. High pressure, the name of the game. It's keeping fronts at bay out in the Atlantic. Lots of dry weather into the weekend. Slightly cooler, fresher conditions perhaps, with temperatures peaking this week on Thursday for our part of the world. Back to this evening, it's clear and dry with a few pockets of mist and fog before the winds just pick up a tiny bit before dawn, a little bit breezier as we start the day tomorrow. A dry night with a touch of rural grass frost in places, 2 or 3 Celsius, the overnight low away from towns and cities. On to tomorrow. First of all, the sun times. It'll be up at 6:45, setting at 7:46 tomorrow evening. A chilly start to the day tomorrow, but lots of lovely sunshine from the very start of the day. And into the afternoon, a fresher breeze, but remaining fine. UV levels climbing to 4, which is moderate, something to bear in mind if you're out in it all day. But with those breezes, even 16, 17 Celsius feeling very pleasant, and tomorrow night dry, again, pockets of mist and fog. Day on day, over the next few days, we'll see temperatures rising. Plenty of sunshine in store for the northwest of England and the Isle of Man, peaking on Thursday at 18 or perhaps 19 Celsius. Towards Friday and the weekend, it's freshening up somewhat, but still well above average for the time of year. By Saturday, slightly more cloud building, but staying dry throughout the weekend for our part of the world. Enjoy your evening.
United Utilities sponsors ITV Granada weather.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. And the sun's come out for our new spring-summer backdrop.
Very nice, delightful. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.